You don't remember the exact moment it started. But if you look closely, you can feel where it came from. Not a single event, not one sentence, but a pattern, a look, a pause. A reaction that lasted just a second too long. And somehow, your mind translated all of it into one quiet belief. I need to become something before I'm allowed to be someone. No one announced it. No one sat you down and explained it, but you learned it anyway. You learned it in the moments where being yourself didn't get the response you expected. In the silence after effort, in the subtle difference between being accepted and being praised. And as a child, you didn't question it. You adapted because that's what the mind does. It doesn't ask if a belief is true, it asks if it works, and this one seemed to work. So you became more aware, more careful, more precise. You started watching yourself, almost like you were someone else. Studying what made people smile, what made them approve, what made them stay. And slowly, something inside you shifted. You stopped being. And started performing. Not in a dramatic way, not in a way anyone would notice, but subtly, consistently. You adjusted your behavior, your tone, your reactions. You learned how to fit. How to win, how to be enough in ways that could be measured. Grades, achievements. Recognition, approval, and every time you got one of those things, it felt like proof. Proof that you were getting closer, closer to that feeling, the feeling that says, now you belong. Now you're allowed. Now you're enough. But the strange thing is, that feeling never stayed. It showed up for a moment, then faded, quietly, almost like it was never really there. So you did what made sense. You tried harder, you aimed higher, worked longer. Pushed further because if it didn't last, it must mean you need more of it. More success, more validation, more reasons to finally feel secure in yourself. And from the outside, it looked like growth, it looked like ambition, discipline. Drive, but inside, it felt different. It felt like pressure that never turned off. Like a voice that never stopped evaluating you, a constant calculation. Is this enough yet? Am I enough yet? And no matter what you did, the answer stayed the same. Not yet. So you kept going, because stopping didn't feel like an option. Stopping felt like failure, like losing everything you had built. So you stayed in motion, always improving, always chasing, always becoming. But never arriving, because what you were chasing was never something you could catch. You weren't chasing success, you were chasing permission, permission to relax. Permission to exist without pressure, permission to feel okay as you are. And that permission always felt like it was somewhere in the future. Just one more step away, but there was always something else, another goal. Another expectation, another version of better. And somewhere along the way, you started to forget something important. There was another version of you, quieter, still, unimpressed by all of this. The part of you that never agreed with the rules. The part that didn't understand why existence needed to be justified. But that part was easy to ignore because it didn't produce results. It didn't earn recognition. It didn't help you succeed, so you pushed it aside. Focused on what worked, stayed productive, stayed efficient, stayed in control. But control has a cost, because when your worth depends on what you produce, rest starts to feel dangerous. Stillness feels uncomfortable, silence feels loud, and eventually, you can't avoid it anymore. It shows up in the gaps, late at night between tasks after achievements. In the exact moments where you expected to finally feel something. But don't. And in that silence, a question appears, not loud, not dramatic, just simple. What if this isn't working? What if all this effort, all this proving, all this chasing, isn't actually leading you where you think it is? And right after that question, another one follows, quieter, more uncomfortable. What if I'm already enough? And I've just been operating under the wrong assumption this whole time. That thought changes the direction of everything. Because if it's true, then the entire system you've built your life on needs to be questioned. Not destroyed, not rejected, just seen clearly, and this is where things split. Two paths, the first path, keeps going exactly the same. It doubles down, more goals. More effort, more proof, it says. Just a little more. You're close. Don't stop now. And it feels convincing. Because it's familiar. It gives you structure, direction, a sense of control. But it also keeps you locked in the same loop, always almost enough, but never fully. The second path does something different. It slows down. Not because everything is solved, but because something is being questioned, a belief. A rule you've been following without realizing it. I have to earn my worth. And when you stop and actually look at that belief, it doesn't hold up. Because how do you measure something like worth? How do you prove it completely? At what point do you say, that's it, I've done enough? I am enough. There's no clear answer, and that's the problem. Because you've been playing a game with no finish line. So the second path doesn't try to win the game, it steps outside of it. And at first, that feels wrong, unnatural, even uncomfortable. Because you're not used to not chasing something. You're used to movement, progress. Improvement, you're used to becoming. But this path asks something different. It asks you to be, without adding anything, without proving anything. Without earning anything, and your mind resists, of course it does. It's been trained to believe that stillness equals stagnation. That rest equals falling behind, so it pushes you back. Do more, fix something, improve something, but instead of reacting, you pause, just for a moment, and in that pause, you start noticing things. The way your thoughts constantly evaluate you. The way your mood depends on external feedback. The way your sense of self shifts based on outcomes, you start seeing the pattern. Not as truth, but as conditioning, something you learned, not something you are. And that realization creates space between you and the voice in your head. The voice that says, you're not enough yet. And instead of believing it immediately, you question it. Gently, is that actually true? And the more you ask that question, the weaker the pattern becomes. Not instantly, not completely, but gradually until one day, something changes. You stop mid-thought, mid-effort, mid-chase, and for the first time, you don't feel the need to continue. Not because you're tired, but because you see it clearly. There was never anything to prove, no invisible judge, no final approval. No moment where existence becomes valid. You were always allowed to be here. Before the achievements, before the validation, before the performance. And in that realization, everything softens, the pressure, the urgency, the constant need to measure yourself. It doesn't disappear completely, but it loses its authority because now you see it for what it is, a habit, a pattern, not the truth, and slowly, life begins to feel different. You still move forward, you still create, build, grow, but not from emptiness. Not from the need to fix yourself, from a different place, a quieter place, where action doesn't come from lack, but from choice. You're not trying to become enough anymore. You're expressing something that's already whole. And that shift is almost invisible from the outside. No one announces it. No one celebrates it, but internally, it changes everything. Because for the first time, you're not living to earn your place in life. You're living from it, and maybe the most important part is this. Nothing about you had to change. For this to be true, not your past, not your achievements, not your identity, just your understanding. Just the belief you were operating under. So now, there's only one real question left. And it's not about your goals, or your success, or your future, it's about right now. In this moment, are you still trying to prove that you deserve to exist? Or are you finally ready to live as if that was never in question?